Good evening, everyone. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with the National Weather Service. Thanks for watching Alaska Weather with us on this February 19th, 2019. As always, we encourage you to stay up to date with your local weather information, and as of today, it's become even more local for you. Many times we catch some really good Facebook comments on our National Weather Service Alaska page that say, hey, what about Fairbanks? Or what about Juneau? What about Anchorage? Tell me more about Mat-Su. You can do that now, and we're trying to help you by giving you 3 new National Weather Service Facebook pages. If you type in at the top of your screen NWS Fairbanks, you'll find the new Fairbanks National Weather Service office. They will continue to post information about the West Coast, the North Slope, and the interior. If you type in NWS Anchorage, you'll get South Central, Southwest, the Aleutians, the Penn, Prince William Sound, and the Kenai Peninsula, as well as the Valley and Anchorage, of course. And if you type in NWS Juneau, you'll now get information from all of Southeast, and just for Southeast. But if you still want to get information for all of Alaska, as you always have, you don't have to do a single thing. We'll continue to share that information to the NWS Alaska page, and you can still find that same information anytime you like. But we encourage you to join the other pages there and to follow along, and make sure under that Following tab, you go into See First and choose everything except the highlights. Make sure you get all of the posts. That way you can stay abreast of all the important weather information, no matter what part of Alaska you're in, all the time, anytime you open your phone. And we want to help to keep you safe in that way. Let's take a look at the hazardous weather. Here's some of the things you'll probably see on the Juneau National Weather Service Facebook page in the near future. A winter storm watch has been posted for Juneau as we go into tomorrow afternoon and Thursday, and also for Gustavus. We're expecting to see some snow move back into that region as low pressure moves quickly out of the west and into the northern Gulf. A little bit further north and west of Juneau is Yakutat and the northern Gulf Coast. In those areas, we're expecting to see additional snowfall as well. That will occur Wednesday and Thursday. And we expect to see a winter weather advisory because of that. So this area, of course, due to get at least a little bit of snow because of that orientation of the low pressure system here. So plan on updates here from the National Weather Service in Juneau as we go into the next couple days there as that low pressure moves in. Up north, it has been snowing and it has been blowing. So we have a winter storm warning, a blizzard warning for the north coast, for the central and eastern Beaufort Seacoast. Blizzard warnings will continue there until the evening and overnight hours. Looks like conditions will gradually improve, though, as we get into the late evening until we get into early morning there. Probably won't be completely wrapped up. South of that, winter weather advisories are expected to continue as we go into the next 24 hours. Out west, we still have low pressure working its way northward, and because of that, winter storm warnings for the southern Seward Peninsula coastline, St. Lawrence Island, the Yukon Delta, mainly because of wind. And in these regions here, we're expecting to see gusts from about 50 to 60 miles per hour, so at least until 6 p.m. tonight, and in some cases midnight. The weather may still be a little bit rough, but about 3 to 6 inches of snow. But really the worst part's going to be the wind, gusting to about 50 to 60 miles per hour. As we look at the bigger picture here, here's a satellite as of this morning, and you can see a very fast-moving wave working it across the southern Bering Sea, ejecting one part of the storm toward south central Alaska. We think this will develop some snow over the Kenai Peninsula and the northern parts of Anchorage and into the Mat-Su valleys. And eventually this is going to line up and allow the next wave to form across the northern Gulf, bringing snow to southeast. But for right now, the low is right about here, and this is tracking north and east, and it's expected to bring that wind up across western parts of Alaska, Seward Peninsula, St. Lawrence Island, as we were talking about. So again, winter storm warnings are posted there. As you look up north, you can still see an exiting part of the most recent wave working across the central and eastern Beaufort Seacoast. Because of that, places like Prudhoe Bay, Deadhorse, Kaktovik, still seeing some gusty winds there and poor visibility, and we expect that to continue at least through the afternoon and early evening hours. Here's the surface weather chart. High pressure sitting out across the west now at 1,030 millibars. The next wave is this 991 millibar low. You can see the cold front and the next warmer round of air out ahead of that. It's already producing snow across the Alaska Peninsula and westward into the eastern chain. The current wave of weather sitting across the northern Gulf, 1,005 millibars there, has a weak front there, a little bit of rain and snow associated on the north side of that. That's been working its way through. Not a whole lot to get excited about with this current round of weather. The current wind that's working across the north slope there is producing those blizzard conditions we were talking about, and there's a trough of low pressure that extends up to just south of the Gulf of Anadyr. As we head into tonight, the high will sit across the Fort Yukon region, about 1,032 millibars. Winds will gradually subside. We'll still have some areas of blowing snow, but it does look like things will gradually improve there. A trough of low pressure sits across the eastern Gulf, and you can see a little bit of ridging trying to take shape here across the Gulf. That should be relatively short-lived as the low out west is dialed into the jet stream and will be working eastward fairly quickly. Lows are going to drop down to about 982 millibars, and you can see by the pressure orientation here that we're going to be dealing with mainly a south and westerly flow up the west coast. That's going to go over Norton Sound, St. Lawrence Island, Nunivak Island, and the southwestern Capes here. And again, we do expect to see at least a little bit of reduction in the current sea ice edge. However, in between each one of these storms will be an opportunity for kind of a quick refreeze. It looks like things are still in good shape to get a quick refreeze. However, not, really producing old ice. It does look like it will add at least a little bit of additional ice in between storms. So there is some good news and maybe some potential recovery in that. On the south side of that, you can see rain and snow will be mixing from the Alaska Peninsula westward toward Adak and Atka. The south side, including parts of Kodiak Island and maybe even parts of the Alaska Peninsula, look like primarily rainfall. But the north side is going to be snow. And we're talking about 3 to 6 inches of snow here and gusts that are pushing that 50 and 60 mile an hour range. So at least winter storm warnings as you move up toward the Norton Sound region and St. Lawrence Island, the Bering Strait coast, all because this high pressure system's not moving and this low is relatively deep. And again, you'll notice it didn't move very much in that 12-hour period from overnight to about Wednesday afternoon. The low will hover around 982 millibars there. That's going to keep a southerly wind across most of the west coast, but a little bit more of an onshore push from Nunivak Island toward the Yukon Delta. Rain will start to spread in and around to Prince William Sound. The Kenai Peninsula is primarily looking at snow, and it looks like by Wednesday afternoon and evening it will be snowing around the Glen Highway, probably the Parks Highway corridor, and southward toward the Sterling Highway and all the way down toward Homer. Look for rain and snow in that region, but it looks like generally northward travel could become a little tricky, so watch for that. As we look out to the east, southeast is going to catch a little bit of a break there, maybe a little bit of a breeze from time to time with high pressure up across the northern Yukon. You'll see some breaks in the clouds around Wainwright and southward toward Tanana. East of that, clouds start to fill in a little bit more, and we do expect that precipitation to gradually head your way. As we get into Thursday, you'll notice that's filling in nicely across the Alaska Range. North of the Yukon, generally more clouds than sunshine. Watch for periods of blowing snow across the North Slope and primarily across the north and western coast as low pressure here is still dawdling across the Seward Peninsula coastline, 1,006 millibars there. But a piece of that has ejected across the northern Gulf, and this is what we expect to see snow developing around the capital city as we get into Wednesday night and Thursday, and then also across the northern Gulf Coast around Yakutat. A 992 millibar low will have a pretty persistent westerly wind, and that's going to set up a pretty decent amount of snow probably for the capital city and onward toward Yakutat in the west. A low pressure sitting across the Yukon Delta will hold around 1,006 millibars, but another low will deepen even more to the west, 970 millibars. This will drag in a decent west and southwesterly fetch, once again focusing on the west coast of Alaska. High pressure is sitting south of Kodiak at 1,031 millibars, and the overall weather pattern aloft is probably not going to change in the next 4 to 5 days beyond this. So we're likely going to see a very similar pattern play out again and again and again as we go into the week that comes. Here's a look at your forecast temperatures for tomorrow morning now. For southeast, we expect to see lows in the mid to upper 20s, generally from Capital City up toward Haines and Skagway. 23 around Yakutat. South of Sitka, you're looking at temps that are at or just below that 32-degree mark there, so Sitka about 31. Cordova, Valdez, you're in the teens and 20s. Kenai about 11, 9 for Anchorage tonight, 8 below around Healy, 9 below for Fairbanks, and anywhere from 5 to about 15 below for the North Slope. Kotzebue Sound temperatures fairly close to 0, 1 below in Kotzebue itself, 11 degrees in Nome, that's 2 ones. Southwest, you're looking at temps in the lower to mid 20s, and most of the Alaska Peninsula, mid to upper 30s there, 32 around St. Paul and also for Adak. High temperatures on Wednesday will be a little milder for southeast, 30s and 40s there, Sitka 41. Prince William Sound at or above freezing, mid-20s for the Cook Inlet region, 41 in Kodiak, 15 in Fairbanks, 3 above in Fort Yukon, and 2 below for Arctic Village. Look for temps on the North Slope to go on the positive side of 0, up to 8 in Utqiagvik, 20 for Shishmaref, 26 in Nome. Southwestern temperatures warming up as well, back into the mid to upper 30s, pushing 40 degrees around King Salmon and Pilot Point, and about 40 for Sandpoint, Cold Bay, and False Pass. Overnight lows Thursday morning will be cooling down up in the north, 20 below for Arctic Village.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
And on to aviation weather now. As the next wave of low pressure works its way up against the west coast, you'll see widespread IFR from St. Lawrence Island all the way down the southwest coast into Bristol Bay and into at least the southern half of Kodiak Island as we start your Wednesday morning. In southeast, look for widespread MVFR for the central and southern panhandles especially. Northward, you'll see a better chance for VFR conditions around Chilkoot and White Pass and into Cross Sound. Westward into Prince William Sound and the Alaska Range, looking for VFR there. MVFR for most of the interior valleys around the Yukon and into the lower Koyukuk. North Slope areas may see hit and miss MVFR with a little better chance of IFR closer to Kaktovik. That improves by the afternoon on Wednesday. For central and southern parts of southeast, look for marginal conditions there. Out across the Seward Peninsula, Kotzebue Sound to St. Lawrence Island, all the way down toward Bristol Bay again and eastward. You'll see IFR filling in as that front approaches the Kenai Peninsula and moves ashore. Across the central and western Bering Sea, hit and miss MVFR conditions there with IFR returning to the western chain. That's the next wave, and as that works its way eastward again, it'll spread into past Kiska and into Adak and Atka by late Thursday afternoon and into Friday morning. For the west coast, watch for IFR conditions there for St. Lawrence Island and into Norton Sound, Unalakleet, all the way down toward Bethel, looking at IFR by Thursday. Marginal conditions, at least for the Kenai Peninsula, but it looks like fairly widespread IFR for the Alaska Range and southward into the Anchorage Bowl. South of that, down Cook Inlet, a better chance for marginal conditions, and IFR is moving toward southeast by Thursday morning. By the afternoon, it will cover up most of the Panhandle with marginal conditions there all the way up toward Prince William Sound. Looking for some improvements around Kenai Peninsula, Cook Inlet, all the way down toward Kodiak Island and down toward the Alaska Peninsula. After that, just about everywhere else is marginal for the interior and the west coast. IFR across the central chain and approaching the Pribilofs and St. Matthew. We will see VFR conditions there for most of the Brooks Range for Thursday afternoon, but many of the areas surrounding it will at least be marginal throughout the day. Here's your pass conditions. As we see it for Anaktuvik and Adigan Pass at this point, looks like VFR really through most of your Wednesday. As we get into Lake Clark and Merrill Pass, we'll see a very fast switch over toward IFR conditions as we get into the afternoon. As that next wave moves in from the west coast, you'll see similar conditions changing for Rainy Pass, a VFR start to IFR finish. Windy Pass, we expect to see marginal levels by the afternoon. It looks like morning flying should be okay for visibility and sealing. Isabel Pass also expected to see VFR to start with marginal conditions developing in the afternoon. Mentasta Pass also expected to end the day on a marginal note. Toneda Pass, we expect to see that quickly change over tomorrow afternoon toward IFR. Portage Pass also looking to go down very quickly by the afternoon. And Chilkoot and White Pass at this point look to be VFR through your Wednesday, but again, expecting some changes as we go through your Thursday. Freezing levels show that next wave is bringing in some warm and wet air already into southwestern Alaska. By tomorrow morning, levels will be higher than about 2,000 to 4,000 feet across the peninsula. To the west, colder air is certainly still there, the surface freezing line just west of Adak. And you can see it taking a jog through southern parts of southeast and riding the coastline from Yakutat to about Kiska tomorrow. Icing potential is a little limited, above about 4,000 to 5,000 feet. You'll have to climb up there to reach into an isolated to moderate kind of a scattering of potential there. Most of that is warming up too with that strong southerly wind. You can expect those levels to go up just a little bit more on Thursday as this entire wave shifts to the east. So right now, generally widespread isolated moderate from the west coast to Prince William Sound and south and west toward Nikolsky. The jet stream has a ridge of high pressure across the Gulf, and it does look like in the extended range, this trough will deepen here across the North Pacific and be a little bit more of a pronounced ridge across the west coast, allowing the west coast pattern and the rest of lower North America to remain kind of the same with this embedded trough here across the lower 48. At 9,000 feet, you can see high pressure sitting across the Gulf. That south and west wind is predominant here, 40 to 50 knots at least for many of our west coast communities, with low pressure sitting around St. Lawrence Island. The next low is already seen on the map there with wind speeds out ahead of it around 85 knots. For southeast, more of a west to northwesterly flow there about 50 to 60 knots. And you can see the ridging here at 3,000 feet as well. The predominant feature, though, is low pressure sitting across the west coast of Alaska with generally a west and southwesterly flow. The ridge working its way up across the north slope, though, is channeling a little bit more of an east to westerly flow across the Brooks Range, anywhere from 20 to 50 knots. Turbulence then will be focused on mostly the Koyukuk Valley and into the upper Tanana, below 40,000 feet across, or 4,000 feet I should say, for Seward Peninsula all the way down to southwest and into Bristol Bay, and then widespread considerable moderate from the Alaska Peninsula all the way along the chain and over the Kenai Peninsula.
kind of hard to explain how important weather is to our job. I mean, it really affects everything we do.
In 2018, NOAA launches the GOES-S satellite, which takes its place in orbit as GOES-17. Working together with GOES-16, the two new geostationary weather satellites will provide constant watch over the United States and the Western Hemisphere, from the west coast of Africa all the way to New Zealand, helping monitor severe storms, wildfires, and daily weather patterns. Since its launch, NOAA's GOES-16 satellite has already demonstrated its critical capability for keeping our nation weather ready. Throughout the active 2017 hurricane season, GOES-16 delivered imagery with detail and clarity never achieved before, with 4 times greater resolution than previous NOAA satellites, and delivered this imagery faster than ever before, helping forecasters predict the path of a storm and where and when it will intensify. These accurate and timely forecasts allowed for emergency managers to prepare for evacuations, map flood areas, and save lives.
So the weather matters. The weather matters before the weather happens, and the weather matters after the event happens, because what we're able to do to prepare, allocate resources, provide information to the public through the media beforehand, and what we're able to do afterwards, how and when the waters are going to recede, so we know we can get vehicles with life-saving food and shelter equipment down a particular highway. All of that depends on the forecast.
In the GOES West position, GOES-17 will be able to provide critical data for the westernmost United States, Alaska, and Hawaii.
We're talking about getting data updates in just seconds, so we can quickly spot wildfires and closely monitor the wind direction and their intensity. The crispness of the data coming in at a faster rate will also help with fog forecasts. We can see the moment the strata starts to develop or when it starts to move out.
Like GOES-16, GOES-17 carries a suite of advanced instruments, including tools for sophisticated earth sensing, lightning detecting, solar imaging, and space weather monitoring. As an equal partner in the sky, GOES-17 will expand coverage of the advanced baseline imager technology across the Pacific Ocean, allowing meteorologists and local officials to see severe weather systems developing in real time.
So instead of seeing something, say, this large, that as you zoom in actually gets kind of blurry, you're actually going to see something that is much more detailed.
In its GOES West position, GOES-17 will be able to monitor conditions in the western U.S. like wildfires, coastal fog, and atmospheric rivers when storms from the Pacific dump heavy rain and snow over the western U.S. GOES-17 will have a major impact on fighting wildfires in California. Up-to-the-minute information and crisp detail allows forecasters to spot fires faster than ever before, even before the first 911 calls come in, and to better track and predict the path of large, dynamic, and dangerous fires.
It's amazing to see what we can get and at the level of detail and the speed that we can get the information down into the ground that makes our decision-making way more accurate.
With a view of the Pacific Ocean, GOES-17 will also provide a critical eye over shipping lanes vital to the U.S. economy, protecting cargo and passenger vessels from dangerous ocean storms. GOES-17 will also provide a high-definition view over Alaska, resulting in better weather forecasts and improved monitoring of sea ice, wildfires, and volcanic ash. The advanced baseline imager on GOES-17 can distinguish between clouds, sea ice, and snow cover, a critical need during Alaska's dark, cloudy winter months. GOES-17's geostationary lightning mapper monitors lightning flashes, including the in-cloud lightning most prevalent in severe storms, helping forecasters determine when a storm is forming, intensifying, and becoming more dangerous. Thanks to GOES-17, emergency managers will be equipped with more accurate weather predictions and faster warnings, providing a real impact, saving lives, and protecting infrastructure. Watching over Earth from 22,300 miles above, GOES-S will provide vital data to our weather-ready nation.
Hi, I'm JPSS. I'm a high-tech weather satellite that orbits our planet. I do something called a polar orbit. I circle the Earth from North Pole to South Pole, over and over, while the Earth spins. While I do that, I get lots of information about what's going on around the globe. I watch storms, clouds, and rain. I take the temperature of the ocean, measure air quality, ozone health, and take pictures of the land and sea. This information is used for all kinds of things. It helps us take care of our coasts and oceans and all the amazing things that live there. It helps us monitor harmful weather events like floods and droughts and measure the health of the environment. Most importantly, it helps us predict weather 3 to 7 days in the future. That means I can be a big help ahead of storms, where future warnings are important. I send information to the National Weather Service. They use the information to create forecasts. The forecasts are shared with people all over the country to help prepare for weather emergencies. So you look to the sky and wave. I'll be flying by.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
And back with your sea ice update now. Sea ice has not changed a whole lot since we last talked about the sea ice edge yesterday. A marginal ice zone is still there, but the main ice pack is still holding on around St. Lawrence Island into Norton Sound. You can see a few areas of marginal ice on the north side, probably some pockets of open water there. But with each one of these storms, we're going to rough up that southern edge just a little bit more. The good news is there does look like there will be a brief opportunity between each storm where there could be some minor areas of new growth. So nothing too substantial, but it doesn't look like the edge is going to recede very quickly to the north at this point. But we certainly do appreciate your observations. You can let us know what you see at weather.gov/Anchorage/ice. Now on to southeast. Weather is going to change again. A weak wave of low pressure is working out of the region right now. A northerly wind across the interior of southeast, 15 to 35 knots tomorrow is expected. Look for seas up to about 7 feet in the north and more of a northwesterly flow across the outer coast. The changes really come as we get into Thursday with a stronger onshore flow and that next storm front working in. Look for westerlies 25 to 35, sustained 13 to 16 feet across the northern Gulf, and on the inside, southerlies in the Lynn Canal, 15 knots and 3-foot seas. Stronger gusts from the south and east, up to 40 knots there, and southeasterlies inside the Clarence Strait, 25 knots with an 8-foot sea. Across south central, winds will be generally light on Wednesday. A gentle east flow inside of Prince William Sound, 15 knots, 2-foot seas there. South and easterlies over the Barrens, 25 to 30. You're looking at seas coming up to 11 feet. And northeasterlies coming down over the ice over Cook Inlet past Kenai, 30 knots with an 11-foot sea. As we get into Thursday, look for a much stronger outflow wind coming into low pressure across the northern Gulf closer to Yakutat. And the winds will pick up in Prince William Sound and outside of Resurrection Bay. Light winds in the northern parts of the inlet there, but the stronger winds will be over the Barrens, 40 to 45, with seas coming up to 11, even 18 feet on the eastern side. Around Bristol Bay, look for a south and westerly wind, 20 knots or so, 5 to 11-foot seas. Around Kodiak Island, low pressures forming in this region. Look for an east and southeasterly flow bending in, 20 to 25, with 12 to 15-foot seas on Wednesday. And you'll notice the sharper winds coming off the Barrens here just east of Kodiak Island, getting glanced by that, a northwesterly flow between Kodiak and AKwx, about 40 knots with a 14-foot sea. And south and westerly winds coming into Bristol Bay, 25 to 30 with 11 to 13-foot seas as we go. For Wednesday out in the west, 30 to 40 knot wind there. Several waves of low pressure will be working through the region, one of those to the north and east and another just off to your west in this particular time frame. Westerlies coming over the central and eastern chain, around 30 knots with a 12 to 16-foot sea in the region, and then come up sharply again on Thursday as that next wave jogs northward fairly quickly, 45 to 50 knots, 25 to 28-foot seas in the west. Across the central and eastern chain, anywhere from 30 to 45 knots. Looks like 12 to 20-foot seas across the Bering Sea coast and up to 25 feet there south of Adak and Atka on Thursday. For the west coast, 30 to 50 knot winds are expected there, the strongest of which will be around St. Matthew. You can see easterlies from Mamaroneck westward towards Savunga and out across the Norton Sound, 35 knots there. South and westerlies around St. Paul, St. George, and into the Kuskokwim Delta, 30 to 35 with a 13 to 17-foot sea on Wednesday. And again, coming up sharply on Thursday as low pressures tracking north and west of your region. 40 knots with a 13 to 14-foot sea. Southwesterly onshore flow is expected from the Kuskokwim Delta all the way up towards St. Lawrence Island and over the ice in Norton Sound there at 25 knots for your Thursday. For the North Slope, southerlies from Utqiagvik east toward Prudhoe Bay, westerly flow over Kaktovik, 20 knots there, and offshore winds for the Chukchi coast, 15 to 30 knots are expected. For Thursday, winds diminish a little bit, but they're all uniform. East to westerlies around the Beaufort Seacoast and across the Chukchi, about 15 knots. A little bit stronger as you get into the Kotzebue Sound region, 25 knots there, and southwesterlies coming in over the Bering Strait toward the southwestern coast of the Seward Peninsula for Thursday. Once again, several waves of low pressure are working through. Southeast has a generally quieter night tonight. Blizzard warnings will gradually go away up north, so now our attention turns to the west coast where winter storm warnings are posted for tomorrow. And with that, we can expect 3 to 6 inches of snow and gusts from 50 to 60 miles per hour for the west coast, all the way down toward the Yukon Delta. Out across south central, we turn our attention to winter weather advisories. About 4 to 8 inches of snow is possible starting tomorrow afternoon around the Anchorage region, more in the Mat-Su and southward toward the Kenai Peninsula and into the Copper River Basin. All the entire region is expecting accumulating snow as we go into Wednesday night and Thursday. And as this storm shifts eastward, a winter storm watch has been posted for the Juneau and Gustavus areas there. You're looking at about 3 to 6 inches of snow. And again, snow's falling around Yakutat as we go into Thursday. Thanks for watching.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.